Wife, 37F, tells me, 38M, find somewhere else to sleep tonight. Argument over sheets escalated to crazy levels in seconds. I'm typing this from a hotel room, still swirling with anger, confusion, and sadness. Several weeks ago my wife, 7 years, 2 kids, and I bought a new mattress, and she also bought new sheets to put on. The old ones sat on the laundry room floor for a couple weeks. Tossing some junk recently, I had the dumb idea to toss the old sheets too, thinking we have new ones now. Wife decides to wash all the sheets today and asks where the old ones are. When I explain, she goes ballistic. After she called me AF retard, I lost it, yelling at the top of my lungs to never call me that, and I threw an empty detergent container against the wall and stormed out of the house. I don't want to write a novel, so I'll just say this has happened a couple times before, and I get really triggered when the attacks go to insulting names. We agreed we'd never cross the line again, and yet here we are. After walking about an hour, she calls and texts and I don't answer or look not ready. After some breathing I checked it and she wanted to know where I put something in the garage. I burst out in tears because after all that I can't believe this is what she texts me about. I text her the info, then turn off my phone. I walk for another hour, calm down and check text. Not cool. You whipping things at me has to stop. Next time I will press charges. You hit me with the Tide bottle. That never happened. I text her, so then power off my phone again. I do a lot of walking and thinking and my emotions are all over the place. About 2 hours later she calls me and starts going on a tirade that I've been gone for hours and I better find somewhere else to sleep tonight. I walk for hours, then check into a hotel. A couple more hours and she asks where I am. When I tell her, she says I've abandoned my family, I'm the most selfish person she knows, and she's done with me. I can't stop cycling between anger, sadness, and fear. I always feel powerless and compelled to apologize, but my wife doesn't respect me enough to call me such names. I don't want to blow up my life, but I don't want to lose my dignity. Maybe a fool's choice. Update 1. The next morning, after some deep reflection, I tried calling, but there was no answer, which wasn't too surprising since she starts work early. I followed up with a text, I'm coming by to pick up the key to the house. We need to talk tonight. We have much deeper issues in our marriage than I thought. It might be time for counseling. She replied she's not giving me her key and to not come. It's normal for me to occasionally drop by her work to pick up/drop off things, reception knows me. I respond that I need to get in the house to get ready for work and she says that's my problem, I could have come home last night. Then she says I can go to her parents' house and ask for their key. With no access to a car, it would take me a few hours to get there and back by transit. I could have called a taxi or a locksmith, but honestly both options felt a bit humiliating and expensive. Without access to my work computer or a clean change of clothes, I decide to call work and take a sick day. My daughter has a soccer game that night and it's a pretty long journey by transit, so I spend a good part of the day journeying across the city, stopping to grab a bite or drink along the way, doing a lot of thinking. My phone is almost dead, so I text her that I have no way to charge it and I'll see her at the game tonight. She replies that she is not driving me home, I can take the bus. At the game I get the silent treatment. Her father is there too and asks how I'm doing. I lie and say I'm okay. After the game my daughter asks if she can ride home in my car. As I open my mouth, my wife shoots me a dirty look and mouths, "Don't you dare." It's obvious that she hasn't told anybody about what happened. Her father thinks I drove to the game. I decide to just go with it and say I'll meet them at home, walking towards a nearby bus stop. I get home around 10 p.m. and knock. She lets me in and gives me an earful about how disgusted she is with me. She asks me if I think what I did was okay. Shamefully I apologize and say how wrong I was. She goes up to our room and closes the door after tossing my pillow and a blanket out on the floor. The next morning, aka today, she leaves for work without saying a word to me. 2. Some more context. I want to give some more context because I think people jump to a lot of conclusions about me being a hot-headed husband on a short fuse or something. If anybody who knew me heard that people were suggesting anger management classes, they would spray coffee out their nose all over the keyboard while laughing right out of their chair. They'd tell you I'm the calmest, most resilient person they've ever known. Most people say I have an uncanny ability to create calmness in others, and can diffuse any situation. Strangers regularly pull me aside to tell me I have the patience of Job. I have no idea who that is, but apparently he's pretty patient. My wife has a short fuse and I diffuse her anger pretty regularly, even when she's up in my face yelling like a toddler. Even she says she relies on me to calm her down, I'm her voice of reason. I've been with my wife 17 years, we dated 10 years before marriage, and although there have been countless heated arguments, this is exactly the second time that I've lost my shit ever. And the first time I've ever thrown something. When I said this has happened before several times, I meant the part where she insults me. I didn't throw anything at her, we were about 10 feet apart. There's no way it touched her in any way. I'm not excusing my behavior, what I did was terrible and completely uncalled for. Clearly, I have an issue, just that anger management isn't the best bang for my buck when it comes to therapy options. I became so triggered to begin with instead of learning techniques that I likely already use. On the actual argument, I took full responsibility. I tried to explain that I wasn't sure where the sheets were and it's possible I threw them out. When she started referring to my stupidity and saying there's something wrong with my brain, I shouted, "Please stop, you're crossing the line," after which she went into full attack mode and I subsequently blew up. The whole argument lasted under a minute. I've never seen something escalate so fast. I barely knew what was going on. On why it took me hours to calm down, I was so upset I was shaking, my heart was racing, and my breathing was intense. I don't know why I reacted so strong, but I didn't want to engage with her again until I could at least physiologically return to normal. On my being stupid and throwing out the sheets, so it turns out I didn't throw out the sheets. I washed them and put them in a bag, but it was around the corner and out of sight. I sometimes struggle to remember where all the shit is in our house and it drives my wife nuts. If things didn't escalate so fast we would have found them in a minute tops. On the other time I lost my shit, this is hard for me to write because I have a lot of shame and embarrassment from it, but maybe others will have some insights. It was 2 years ago and we were in an argument that was getting very heated and escalating. I tried stepping away and went to the basement to get something from the fridge. My wife followed me down the stairs and kept the argument going. I told her enough and I want to go back upstairs and she said no, we're not done yet. I was cornered and she was unloading on me and then something inside me snapped. I felt an adrenaline rush like nothing I've experienced before and my eyes shot wide open. I started yelling like a maniac, the same thing over and over again, "Leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone." She took a step back and said, "What's wrong with you?" I saw the space and bolted, running up the stairs and into the bedroom, and she chased me telling me to calm down, but I was completely hysterical. I grabbed my shoes and headed towards the door, but she threw herself in front, blocking me so I couldn't leave. Our house only has one door. I tried to pry her off the door and she struggled with me and started yelling that I was hurting her. I got scared and just dropped to the floor, huddled in a corner and sobbing, "Leave me alone," over and over. She stood there and eventually asked me if I was going to leave and I said no and she walked away. I don't know how long it took me to get back up again and turn around to face my family. I was so ashamed and embarrassed by how out of control I was. My wife claimed that when I bolted I knocked her down and she injured herself. She threatened to charge me if it ever happened again. I don't remember her falling and was really skeptical at the time. We didn't talk for weeks. When we did, we agreed that we need to have mutual respect for each other while arguing and can never let things escalate like that again. 3. Conclusions. Next steps. Currently I'm in the figurative dog house. I'm going to pay for what I've done through cold stares, unnecessary snapping, making my life inconvenient at every turn, until she's satisfied that I've fallen back in line and things can go back to normal. I've seen this pattern before and I know how it goes. When things go back to normal we can talk about her behavior, but bringing it up now will just be reframed as me making her the villain and trying to play victim. I'm going to get therapy. It's not an easy step. I've been really successful in life, but one thing I struggle with is asking for help. I need to understand what's happening to me. My behavior is some seriously messed up unhealthy shit. And my marriage is not what I thought it was. I deeply regret the whole incident. I wish I didn't act childish and turn off my phone. I wish I came back to the house and tried to work things out. I'm not sure what I was thinking except that I was really shaken about what happened and calling into question if my wife even loved me. I was scared to enter into another argument or conversation without getting some clarity first, and I really wanted some sign from my wife that she wanted me to come back or at least acknowledge that things got out of control. I'm going to try and get my wife into therapy and marriage counseling together. I'm not sure if she will. In her mind this is all my shit to deal with and there's a very big stigma around any kind of therapy/mental health issues in her family, embarrasses the family, even though clearly some of them have super obvious issues. I'm not sure if I'm being emotionally abused. I don't think of myself as a victim, so I'm not ready to make this claim, but I'm open to considering the possibility. I do notice a significant number of things in my marriage walk a blurry line. There seem to be a lot of convenient excuses about why things have to be a certain way and disproportionate reaction if I challenge them that makes it not worth it. I've just seen it as compromise so far. On the whole I think our life has been pretty good, but a lot of that does seem conditional on not angering my wife. I'm not going to get a lawyer at this time. I really don't want to blow up my life. I love seeing my kids every day. Financially we're doing better than either of us could have expected. Divorce is going to be very painful and I'm not ready to turn my whole life upside down. One final thought: I don't feel good about growing old with my wife. I worry that if my mental capacity goes before hers she's going to unfairly punish me when I screw up, losing things, throwing things out, whatever. I don't know if she will be there for me and that's a scary thought. I really hope therapy will help our relationship. Typing up this post my wife sent me a text that she thinks I should take the bus into work because I'm in no condition to drive. I didn't think much of it until I went to leave the house and realized she removed the car keys from my keychain. I have no access to the car. I am really freaking out about this. Edit 2, I texted her to say it's not okay for her to remove my access to the car. She replied, "You are in no condition to drive. All I need is for you to get in an accident. You are tired and on a regular day aren't the most aware driver. You'll be worse today. Looking out for your well-being." I am furious, like my hands are shaking. I can't believe it. Update 2. There are some things that I want to clear up. I don't feel unsafe in any way. Yes, she took my keys and F with me, but this is completely new ground that's never happened in our relationship before, and I won't put up with this mess. She does not control the money or my phone, and she didn't get to keep control of the car for long. My relationship with family friends is not close, but it's not so far gone that I can't reach out for help. If I'm trapped, then it's only in an emotional prison of my own making. I have the ability to physically leave if I want. Also, I don't think of my wife as a monster. I know these experiences are truly awful, but they represent the absolute worst of our time together, and there is significant time between them. Most days we get along just fine. So what happened next? This is obscenely long. I don't have time to write something shorter. I went to work and spent most of the day reading every single reply and the linked material/videos. Some are real eye-openers. I booked an appointment for therapy later this week. This comment, "She's trained you for over a decade to smooth things over for her hysteria, take the blame for minor infractions, take her insults and abuse, and you've been squirming and bending over backwards trying to play a slot machine, that never gives the reward for your good behavior her love." I'd also like to say this other comment, "You have 2 kids and a 7-year marriage and you're arguing over dumb shit that you did." IMO, these arguments don't substantiate domestic abuse from her. The way I understand emotional abuse is that, arguing over dumb shit that I've done, is exactly what it looks like. The abuser fixates on an infraction, real or imagined, by the victim and uses it to justify unleashing their abuse while making the victim feel like they deserve it. I am terrified of blowing up my life, screwing up my kids, getting financially ruined, only to realize at the end of it all that I was just doing stupid shit, being overly sensitive, and all I needed was to grow up and communicate better, and everything would have turned out rainbows and lollipops. It's why I'm trying to exercise every option available and ignoring the overwhelming number of "run now" comments. After work, my wife texted me asking if I was going to our daughter's swim lesson. I said I'd catch an Uber, and she texted me back, "Fine, but you have to Uber at home too. I can't have you in the same car as me. You stress me out and I need to focus on driving 100%. I said it was unfortunate that she can't be civil for a 10-minute drive and that I want the car key back tonight. There was a lot of back and forth about her taking the car this morning, and then I threw in that I'm sleeping in our bed tonight. She said I lost that privilege when I didn't come home. I said she doesn't get to decide, and she says I've somehow given up the right to our room because of what I did. She demanded space, and I told her she's free to sleep in any other room if she doesn't want to join me. I arrive at swim lesson and she's sitting with my son, almost 3 years old. Since I slept in his room last night, he asks if we're going to have another sleepover. My wife seizes on the opportunity and says, "Yes, that's a great idea, Daddy is going to sleep over again." Calmly I explain to my son we'll have the sleepover another day. My daughter comes out of her lesson and usually I get her dried and changed while my wife watches our son, but this time she encourages him to follow me to the change room, who doesn't love the extra challenge of trying to watch a toddler while managing wet swimsuits and towels. After she says she will drive me home, but only if I don't sleep in our room tonight. I start insisting and she pleads that she needs just one more night to process her feelings, so I agree. We spend the whole drive home arguing about Sunday's events. Once the kids are in bed, she demands that I get to our room now for a discussion. She's angry and starts going off about how I have no right to dictate what happens in the house and who sleeps where. I'm an entirely different kind of calm this time. Every word and action coming out of her seems to have no effect on me. Instead, I'm listening curiously, and it's like I'm observing her trying to abuse me. I ask her strategic questions very calmly, like, "When did we agree that you can revoke my bedroom privilege?" As she turns the discussion to the initial sheet incident, she tries to guilt me about how horrible my actions were, and I ask why she thinks I reacted that way. Her anger is growing by the minute. I ask why she felt it was okay to call me AFR, and she lost her shit, yelling in my face, "Because you are AF retard, what idiot throws out perfectly good sheets? I called you a retard because of all the stupid shit you do. I really do think you're retarded." She can see this isn't having the desired effect on me at all. She tells me that she hates me and that she's always hated me since our daughter was born, 5 years ago, but has only stayed with me for the children. She starts pulling out every argument we've had for the past 5 years and yelling about how awful I've been and how hard it's been to be with me. It goes on and on and on for a good half hour, and all I see is her trying to abuse me. And then she just ran out of things to say. After a few minutes she asked, "So now what?" Calmly I told her that with so much hidden resentment, at least now I know why she treats me that way and that we need to work through this with therapy and counseling. I also mention that I think she has a deep fear that I'm going to abandon our marriage, but I'm committed to making things work. She bursts out into tears. She wants to hug me and I oblige, we embrace and it's genuine on her part, but inside I'm hesitant to fully enjoy it. She smiles and looks at me and I can see she's happy, and then she says I can sleep in our room tonight. My son wakes up and calls out for me. I go and try to settle him but he becomes hysterical screaming that he doesn't want me to leave, he's hyperventilating. My wife comes and says he did the same thing the night I didn't come home. I can see her mood is shifting to uncomfortable. After a lot of hugs and holding him for a while he calms down and I put him back in his bed. After settling the dogs and returning to bed my wife says out of the blue that she has to stop saying things to hurt me. I agree and I'm really hopeful about our future. Then she says she has a problem with the counseling idea, and admits she's being stubborn but brings up that she suggested counseling years ago and I said we didn't need it at the time, so why should we go now just because I want to go? I'm a little put off and say I was wrong in the past and clearly we need it because our problems are really deep. She says it's always about what I want and why should she pay someone when she's read up on relationships and all we need is to talk to each other each week. I said I think we really need a professional involved and she says we really don't have time for that with our busy schedules. She then says that just because I feel like we need it that doesn't mean it's true. She adds that I'm the one with issues by flying off the handle when she insults me. I tell her that insults aren't acceptable to me and she says that's just my opinion and she wouldn't get upset if I called her names. At this point I'm getting confused because what the actual F? We have a very long and calm debate about whether it's acceptable to call your partner a retard, moron, etc. She ran her story by her work friends and says they said it's a completely reasonable response to my tossing the sheets, it was retarded, so I'm a retard. I'm at a loss, I don't even know what to say, so I say I guess we have different opinions about this. She counters by saying that my problem is I think my opinion is the normal one but actually the way I react to insults is not normal and if I insult her like that she wouldn't get upset, like most people. We have a lot of back and forth about times when I had an opinion and treated it like fact but it turned out I was wrong. It's after midnight and we're exhausted. We say goodnight and turn out the lights. The next morning we are civil to each other in our usual morning routine. Thanks if you made it this far. I don't know what to make of my situation. I'm repeatedly calling into question whether we're just really poor communicators or I was just too messy of a husband earlier in our marriage. Full disclosure, I was a shitty husband early in our marriage. I didn't do bad things but I didn't do much to make her feel special either. When discussions heated up I would withdraw and go to silence. I've done a lot of work on myself over the years and for at least the 12 months I've been a superstar husband. Edit. I am planning on getting a divorce in 6 months. I need therapy first. I can't do something so drastic based solely on a Reddit thread. If the therapist echoes Reddit sentiment I will accelerate.